sound. Hopefully you can hear me now. It's like 2 minutes. Okay, how's everybody going today? Or doing today, pardon me. Seems kind of quiet in the chat today. So today I was going to see if I can work on the LED again and see if I can figure out some of the functionality. Let me move this over because it's a little bright. So right now it's kind of quiet in here, which is okay. But what I want to do is see what functionality exists. So I actually just pulled down the actual build for this, and I'll show you where that is. So if I go over to the browser for a second, you can see that we've got a view of actually the last build that was posted, and this looks like 3 months ago. There's something about a bootloader, all that information. So I pulled that down to my desktop, and I'll show you that. So if I go to my downloads folder, and you can actually see it, it's right here. So I'm gonna extract all, and we're gonna see what's in there, because I'm curious as to what new functionality might exist and what may not. And I also want to try adding G codes to it. So this is going to be kind of boring maybe, but we'll see. So, whoop, sorry, I was just checking on the chat there. So this is almost extracted. It's kind of a big file. And now that that's almost complete, we'll actually go into the folder and see what's there. So the folder still hasn't materialized for me to actually work with, so let's give that a second more. actually is this. So what we're interested in inside this folder is we have the TFT source, but that's not really of interest. We have, let's see, copy to root directory, and these are all the LCD or TFT types that you can copy, and then there's different themes, and then there's a config.ini. This is actually what I want to focus on. And inside here, as soon as I can bring it over, is going to be a bunch of settings. And I just want to add a quick setting here. So I'm scrolling through this kind of fast, but I'm looking for a default functionality that may exist near the bottom. Here it is. So these are G codes. So M84. We can look that up and see what it is. So if I actually pull up the browser, we can go over to here and we can say, okay, let's see what a G code is. So we'll do all, and then we'll find the M84 probably over here, if it exists, which it doesn't. So that kind of doesn't work out very well. So let's see what else we have here. So we have M21. Let's see what that is. That probably has to do with the SD card, because that's what it says. This is disable steppers. Wonder why that's not right. So let's search on that and see what's going on, because there is a command for that. So if we go over here and we do a Control F and then paste, it is actually M84, and the question is, why am I not normally seeing it? So it's probably M18, but let's click on it and see if we can find it. So it does say disable steppers. It's probably the same command for both. So let's go back and take a look at the other commands. Let's see. There's no M119. So maybe we can add that in. So right here, we could say M119. And then we could say status at end stops. And let's see if this actually works. So I need to actually flash this to a drive. So I'm going to grab a drive and insert it in here real quick. So I have one already pre-prepped. This is an 8 gig drive. So I need to put it in my little converter for it. And I'll check on the chat in just a second. So that's all set up. The drive just loaded. I'm going to save this file. And that's just a simple change I'm going to make just so I can see what's going on. And then we'll see what's going on in the chat. So let me bring you over to the desktop for a sec so I don't pull it right up in front of you. So we got a couple people here already. So everyone seems kind of quiet. That's okay. But let me bring up the actual drive again here. So we're going to go to the downloads folder. It's actually this one right here. We're going to copy this. We're going to right click here. We're going to send this to the E drive. This is going to take a second probably. And then we're going to have to move stuff flat over to the drive. And hopefully I won't mess this up because it's been a while since I've done it. And let me move this over here. So how's everybody doing today? Is the sound okay? Let me see if it works on my side. Looks like it is. Okay, now that this is copied over to the drive, we're going to go to the drive. We're going to take this part, and I think the version that I'm working with is this one, but it could be a bunch of others, so I have to look at my drive, and I'll show you what that looks like for my actual TFT. So over here, if we look at the monitor or the TFT, it says V3, and it's a TFT 35. So we have to go through here, and we see V3, and then there's a couple of different ones. So we want the binary file, so we're going to copy this. We're going to take it to the root of the drive and paste it. Then we have to go back in here, and we have to pick a theme. So I'm guessing this one. We may have to change this in the config file, but we'll find out. Then I'll go back into this folder and I'll grab the configs. I don't know what the second one does, but that's probably like an abbreviation for something. So I'll copy these, bring them over here, paste them, and I think we need a language. In this case, I'll pick English and bring that back. So you obviously can't see what I'm doing because I didn't transition over, but I copied these out of here, and the language is in here, so they're all listed right here. So the config file is the key to everything. This says what you're working with. Those are the supported monitors or TFTs for the actual display. And this is the version and when it came out. So it looks like it came out last year. And then down throughout here, there's other settings. Normally I have to fiddle with the actual settings, but in this case I'm going to cheat and actually grab the number for the speed, because it defaults usually to this right here, and I want to default to this. So I'm going to paste or copy or type in 6, and then the primary language in this case is going to be English. I guess you can do a secondary language, but I don't know how that works. I think they mean just if you have another language other than English. And then colors, I'm not too concerned about. Background color, I'm not really concerned about. Kind of like it the way it is. But I want to see if there's anything in here about, let's see, BL Touch. I doubt it. Oh, there's something about the BL Touch, but let's see what it is. So only for Marlin printers with 1 stepper driver per Z stepper motor and no Z timing belt, also requires a BL Touch. So it's Z stepper auto alignment. So I'm guessing this has to do with some kind of algorithm to straighten out your axis between the two, but I don't know what that does. Let's see if there's anything else on BL Touch. Nope. So we can add stuff with G codes down below. but I wanted to show this because a lot of people have been asking about the BL Touch and how to use it. You can add your commands in here to actually use it. Obviously there's a save already in there, and then there's a restore, and then defaults, and then what you would need to do is actually have your surface probing added down in here. But for now we're going to skip that because I still have to work out all the details. So now that this is done, we'll save the config just in case. And we'll try and load this. So I'm going to take this out of the computer, place it on the desktop so you can see what I'm doing. And I need to figure out how to set this up. So it's been a while, so I'm going to go back over to the browser. Inside the browser, I'm going to go back to GitHub. I'm going to actually find out what it is for this type. So we'll click here, we'll go to hardware, we'll go to pins, and then we'll find out where the TFT is listed, which is over in here. And so we need to know where reset is, which is right here. So now that we know that, we can go back to the screen for the desktop, and this is the reset right here. So the other ones are going to plug in normally right here, I believe. And then we're gonna take the pin that's sitting out and go like that. And that should set up the TFT display. Now we can test it with power from the USB. And it comes right up. Obviously it's got a default setup that I loaded. So we know it actually works. So I'm gonna unplug it. I'm actually going to load a new firmware on it, and obviously I don't have the setup in there for the actual special logos. So let's see what happens. This might fail. I'll check on the chat right now. Wow, super quiet today, guys. So the fonts are okay, the config's okay, the language is okay, the icons are okay. Insert SD card with required files and press reset button. So apparently I've made a mistake. So let's see what's going on. So there's a reset button right here, and it's going to say the exact same thing probably. So I've done something incorrect. So I'm going to uninstall this for a second and power this down and see what's going on, because obviously I've done something incorrect, or it's loading the same build, in which case probably won't allow me to do much. So let's see what we got here. So if we're over here, I think the current version is what we're actually working with. So let me go back to it just to see what's going on here. So if we go in here and we look at copy to, it says 1.27. 2.7 is the actual build. So if we go over to the desktop for a second, we power this up, we can actually check to see what the build is, hopefully, if I haven't screwed it up. So apparently I goofed it up, which is okay. Sorry, I'm trying to change it to something else here, and it's not letting me, so I've screwed something up. So now let's figure out what I screwed up. So if we go over to the drive, and we click over here, I'm going to go to the downloads folder, then I'm going to go over to the drive. So it's the E drive. So what we need to understand is it looks like it loaded this right here, so that's fine. but it didn't load everything else. So what I mean by it loaded is this says .cur, so it updated. So if you go over to here, you'll see it's .bin. So to get that to load correctly, we have to go back over here and we have to rename this back to bin, and that will reload it again. Now, what else do we have in here? We have actual display types. This is where I screwed up. So I've got to copy this one over so it can actually use them. So I'm going to go over here and paste it. And in theory, this will work better, but it's just theory. Then I'll go back to the workbench and we'll see what happens. So I'll power this down, flip this over, plug it in, make sure it's tilting so you can see it hopefully, and power it back up, and hopefully it'll be better this time. And then I'll check on the chat while that's going on. Still quiet. Wow. Normally you guys are talkative. I'm hoping my sound is working. So now that we're on the loading here, you can see it takes a little bit longer. Obviously there's more going on. So it's copying over the fonts. And obviously this is not fast. So it's just over halfway done. See if I can pick this up so you can see better. So right now what it's doing is it's copying over obviously fonts from that one folder I copied over to the display. So after that's completed, it's probably going to prompt me to do some stuff, or maybe not because I'm not changing versions. But let's see what happens. It says updating logos. So now it's copying over the logos. It's going to blow away the logo that I have for the splash screen, but that's okay. I need to actually do a tutorial on how to do this. If you haven't watched my live streams before, I have a list of tutorials now that I put in the description. And so there's lots of different areas that I cover on different printer boards. There's the ramps, there's the MKS or Maker Base, and then there's the SKR by Big Tree. I cover a lot of different ones. So a lot of these tutorials actually can be interchangeable. You just have to know to change the motherboard type for the actual printer board. So it's almost there. So it says card inserted obviously, and so all my stuff that I had there before is gone. So I'm going to pull this out for a second. It says no printer attached. That has to do with this being the SKR 1.4 doesn't have it set up yet, but we're not really working with it today. I'm just messing around with this. So we may work with it in a second though. So I'm going to click over here. I'm going to check on custom commands, and then I'm going to see if I can scroll down and see if there's anything on what we put in here. So there's stepper or disable steppers, init SD, release SD card. So our custom command didn't make it over. That's interesting. So we can check that out actually by putting this drive in here back in and seeing if maybe we got something wrong. So I'm going to place this back on the computer. Go over to the desktop for a second and see what's going on here. So I'm going to go to the E drive. I'm going to go to config.ini.cur. We might be able to reload this. So apparently it doesn't want me to open it the way I normally would. So I'm going to hit escape. I'm going to rename it. I'm actually just going to knock out the cur and open up the INI. So in here, we're going to scroll down to the very bottom, and we're going to look for that custom command, which was right here. It might be too far out of range because we said EEPROM defaults, and then there's a custom right here. So I'm going to actually copy this portion right here and move it up and place it right here. Then this might have a character limit, so we'll say end stops. So I'm going to copy that and I'm going to place that right here. And let's see if it's so we'll just call this, yeah, that's good. So let's see what happens. So I'm gonna save this, and this might be either workable or we'll have to reload. So let's see what happens. So I'm gonna pop this out. I'm gonna go over to the workbench for a second. I'll pull this out, remove the power, and stick this in and see if it renames it to cur. Okay, it's trying to do an update of something. Let's go to menu, custom. So it's still not there. So obviously I don't know how to do that yet, which is fine. But let's try checking on what's happening with the file. So I'm going to take this back out, put it in here, and see if it got renamed or not. This is usually how I figure out tutorials, is just doing the same thing over and over until I figure it out. I might know what the answer is, but I want you to see what my thought process is. So I'm going to go back over to the desktop. I'm going to go back into the file. So let me just get there. It renamed it to cur, so that worked. Obviously I can't open it, so let's rename it. Okay, and now we're just going to move it into that position and see if that does anything. So the last known good thing that was on the monitor we'll do for EEPROM and see if that works. All we're trying to do is rename the name at first, then we'll worry about the actual other stuff. So I'm going to copy end stop, and I'm going to put it someplace where we know we can see the output. So I'm going to put it up here, and I'm guessing right above it's probably going to tell me how to do this right. So it says value range minimum 3, maximum 75 characters, so we're within that. To enable custom commands, remove the hash mark. Oh. So, master of the obvious, I did not follow the directions. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to place it right here. I actually made a couple mistakes, but at least you can see them. And that's the whole point of the stream sometimes, is just to see my mistakes. So there's 1, there's 2. Let's save this, and let's close out. So let me grab this out of the computer and go to the workbench, and we'll see if this works. So I pop that out. I'm going to power this down, slide this in. So essentially it said remove the comment is what it was trying to say. So that's going to load. I'll change the angle so it looks better. And then we'll go to menu, custom, scroll down. Now we have end stops. So if we click on this, it says no printer attached, so we still have to fix that. That's easy. So we're gonna go back over to the computer for a second, and I'll check on the chat while this is going on. Hang on a second, I just need to bring something up here. There we go. So inside here I actually opened up, this is the actual version of Marlin bug fix. I was actually searching around to see what was going on for new functionality. So some of that functionality you'll see in future videos, but for now I'm not going to talk about it. But I'm going to go to Core Boards, search on SKR. I'm going to grab our board type, which is down here. I'm going to close out of here, minimize that, go to configuration.h, search on motherboard, paste it over the ramp's default. I'm going to change this to -1, and then I'm going to enable this, and I always forget the numbers, so I'm guessing it's 2, but I could be terribly wrong. So we'll see what happens. This is actually for the TFT display. We can look this up in a bunch of different places, but I like to guess, which I know is somewhat irritating to people, but in this case I'm trying to learn something new. For each of the SKR boards it may vary. And then for here we have to actually put in LPC 1768, or 9, pardon me. And then we have to clean before we build, because I may have built another board last night and not realized it. And I'll check on the chat while that's building after I click build. And let's see what we got here. Okay, now it's getting crowded. Hey, Plasma, how's it going? You're building a CO2 laser. One heads up or 2 heads up for that. Keep in mind that you need adequate ventilation. And the other issue that you're going to have to keep in mind is the protection for eyeglasses or shielding for the laser's light so it doesn't damage your eyes. So we got some issues with our build here. So I'm going to click in a second. Let me see what's going on here. It's saying something about EEPROM. I'm going to build again and see if it actually works. Sometimes it does fail. And in this case it's failing miserably. So LPC 1769. And our actual motherboard down here is correct. Speed's correct. -1. This is the only thing that might be an issue because I haven't said anything else. But let's check on this config file because I know it had some funky things in it where someone made changes. So I'm going to search on A4988, and here's something that was funky inside it. Apparently somebody had changed this to uncommented because it's what they checked in. That might be causing other issues. So this might be causing compiler issues because they have something going on in the config that I don't know about. So let's see, conflict with E-stepper pins. So what I'm going to do is actually close out of this for a second and grab a Marlin that's actually known good. So I'm going to close the folder. I'm going to go over to the desktop for a second and fix this. So on the desktop, I'm going to go over to the downloads folder. I'm actually going to delete this because I know it doesn't work very well. I'm going to delete the previous bug fix because I'm not using that at the moment. This was from last night, so I want to delete that so I don't cause confusion. Then I'm going to right click and I'm going to extract all on this. So apparently I did the extract all on the other screen so you can see part of it at least. And I'll check on the chat while that's going on. So for your plasma table, does it have water underneath, or are you absorbing the laser's power, or is it not powerful enough to cut further down below? So this is extracted now. So I'm going to go back over to VS Code, and we'll make these changes super quick, hopefully. So I'm going to open it. Actually, you can't see what I'm doing, so there we go. Click on Marlin, Marlin again, select folder. And inside here, I'm going to see if I can paste the source without copying it again. So I'll search on motherboard, see if it's still in the buffer. It is. I'll do -1, and I'll remove the comment here and change this to 2. And then we'll double check on the steppers. So I'll search on A4988. And you can see this is what it's supposed to look like. But bug fix, apparently someone took their changes and checked them in. And that's why these look different. Hopefully someone will fix that. I keep putting comments up there about it, and then someone rechecks it in. So that's not really something I want to comment on anymore. But now that that's done, let's go over here and change this to LPC 1768 or 9. Do a clean, and then do a build. And then I'll check on the chat real quick here. Oh, so that's failing at the moment. Let's see why it's failing. So it's still saying serial port is failing. So let's go over and check to see what else could be grabbing it. So if I look in Pronterface, it connects now. Let's disconnect. So hopefully that's not the confusion. It might be that the TFT display is causing interference. Let's go over to that and cheat. So I'm going to power this down. I'm going to unplug this for a moment. Plug this back in. Then I'm going to go back over to VS Code. Inside VS Code, we'll try this again. It shouldn't matter when you click the checkbox though, so it might be what I'm picking for the value here. So this value might not be good, so let's just try this first. I'm gonna comment it out for a second and see if it builds. So that might be the issue right there, and it looks like I caused the issue in bug fix. So it's usually just keeping track of what you're changing and then going back and fixing it. In my case, it's often. So that worked. So now I'm going to change this to, we'll try 1. I think it might be 3, but I don't know. And we'll see if this actually loads. So it's looking pretty good at the moment. And I'll look over at the chat while that's going on. Okay, that loaded. So let's go over to the board. And on the board, we're going to power it down, then power it back up to make the changes. So this will take a second to load. That's good. So I'm going to power it off for a second and reconnect this. And see if we fix that problem. No printer attached. Let's double check on the speed. Let's see, where's speed? Settings, connection, baud rate. Baud rate's correct. So what I'm doing wrong is actually the connection over here. So I'm going to disconnect this, reconnect it, go back over to VS Code and fix this. So it's either 0 or 3, I think. So let's try 0 and then try and upload this. I actually know the exact number because I've done the tutorial about 9 times now. So I'm going to peek and see if I can find it real quick. I might not have it written down in front of me. Okay, that uploaded. Or at least I think it did. Let's check. Yeah, it looks like it did right here. So let's go over to the desktop or workbench. Unplug it, plug it back in. Keep an eye on what's going on here. And that one was right, so it's 0. So now let's go and check the end stops like we were trying to do about 10 minutes ago. Menu, custom, scroll down, end stops. Guess you have to hit enter maybe? Oh, that doesn't work. Interesting. So maybe that command doesn't work. I know it works over here when you go M119 send. That's what you should get. So maybe I made a mistake in the actual command. So let's try that. Let's go back over to the computer and see what I used. So I'm going to pull the drive for a second. Pop it in here, put it in the computer. And let's see what we get. So I'm going to go over to the desktop so you can see what I'm doing. Go to the E drive. Rename this because we don't want to see the error message yet again. Open it up. Search on end stop. Or end stops. And let's make sure we got this right. So that's a command. That's a command. And you can't see what I'm doing. Sorry. So these are commands each. So what I want to do is I actually want to look to see what's going on. So I want to see if there's some kind of display command because maybe these just don't work. And I'm also going to check to see what else we got here, but let's see. They don't really have a simple command. This is restore bed leveling. M22, that's motors off. So we might have to install a motor. I'm sorry, M84 is motors off. So I think what we'll do is install a motor just to test this theory. So I'm going to go over to VS Code for a second. And I'll pick a simple motor where we don't have to do a lot. So I'll probably do the TMC 2208. So give me a second to bring this up here. So in here we're going to search on A4988. We're going to click on this line, remove the comment. We'll do TMC 2208. We'll paste it right here. I'm not going to make any changes down here because I know how many times I've talked about this. It gets a little boring. We don't really have to make any changes on the other side for advanced. So I'm going to upload it and then I'm going to make the changes on the board so we can actually use it. And I'll check on the chat while this is going on. Oh, back to being quiet. Oh, got an error. Let's see what the error is. So, something about bed leveling, which makes absolutely no sense. So let's try upload again. Normally one would think that the actual builds were more stable, but for some reason sometimes it takes 2 or 3 tries, which I think is odd because I haven't really changed it that much. So that's good. Let's go back over to the desktop for a second. On the desktop, I'm just going to remove the power. And then over here, I need to set the actual jumpers. Now I know what they are, but I want to show you how to check them. So over here, we need to pop these out because they're not in the right position. They're in position for SPI, but we're actually using UART. So I need to pop these out real quick. And then I'll show you real quick in the diagram on the browser for this. So in the browser, if we go over here, go to Big Tree Tech, SKR 1.3, 1.4, go to the manual, down here, sorry this is moving kind of fast, here's UART, so that's the jumper. So let's go back to the desktop and set that real quick. So I'm going to place the jumper right here, push it down. Now I got to get a board in there so we can actually step. The board alignment is based on the coloring, but also the enable pin. So the enable pin is located right here, and right here is where it goes into. So we'll put that there, and then I'll plug in this. And hopefully, we don't really need to run a, pardon me for that. You don't need to run a cooling set of fins. We're not going to be running it that much. So I'm going to plug this back in. I actually need power to run the actual steppers, so I'm going to have to hook that up as well. So we're good there. So let me get some power on this. Like I always talk about, ferrule connectors are a good idea. Also makes it easier to mount these in here without the wires splayed about when you're trying to work with them. Okay, that's connected. Let's connect the power for the USB. We can't actually use the steppers the way we want. Sorry about that. You need to move the jumper over so you can use the steppers for TMCs. So I'm going to plug that in. There's going to be no power running through it at the moment. Then I'm going to take the cord and plug it in. Okay, now it's energized, so you have to be very careful. So on here, I'm going to go to menu. I'm going to go to movement. I'm going to move this over first, just for safety. I'm going to move, and then I'm going to move this 10. So it works. So now you won't be able to move it because it's got a hold on it. So we're going to go back, back. We'll go to custom, and we'll find out if this actually works. So disable steppers. So it does work. So apparently these commands you can't see the response from. That's interesting. So if I do the end stop command, we're not going to see the response because it's suppressed or not designed to display it. So that command was useless where I put it, but at least now you know what that functionality is for, and so do I. So you know you can still do it over here with the M1, 2, 8. I'm sorry, 1. Hang on a second. Love the back. 119. Then you can see the command. So you can also do motors off over here. So let's test that. So if we were to go to movement, movement, move. See how it's stuck? We'll go back over to here. We'll do terminal, and then it's M84. Enter, and it says OK. And now it moves. So I guess the custom commands do not give you a response back. So now we know. No, that was a long trip to find out something very simple, but that's part of the fun. But it looks like everyone's a little bit tired today. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, well, if it's going to be a quiet day today, I'll let you guys go. I'm a little worn out still. So everyone take care, be safe, and remember to get your vaccine shot when you get a chance.